Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the episode of the Profits on Purpose podcast, where we explore the stories of the entrepreneurs and innovators who are brave enough to not only challenge the status quo, but they're out there having a go at fixing it as well. Guys, I'm your host. My name is Nate Littlewood. Thank you for tuning in today. In today's episode, I'm going to be speaking with an award-winning designer, author, creativity expert, and founder named Joey Cofone. Joey and his business, Baronfig, they sell tools for enhancing your productivity and creativity. So think pens, notebooks, and journals, including a habit journal collaboration with a guy named James Clear, who you might recognize as the author of Atomic Habits. So Joey and I first met back in 2024 via a mutual friend and actually another fellow fractional CFO like myself, a guy named John Blair. He works or runs a firm called Free to Grow CFO. Anyway, Joey and I have kept in touch since then, and I was absolutely thrilled when he agreed to join me as a guest on the podcast today. For what became a really, really fascinating conversation about his entrepreneurial journey, the process of creativity, his work in the field of creativity, and frankly, all of the lessons that he has learned through his 20 plus years experience in basically bringing ideas to life. So Joey, it's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast today. I thought that a good place for us to start would be to talk about how you came to be writing a book all about creativity. Could you maybe fill us in on the backstory there?
Yes, creativity. Nate, thanks for having me, man. That's a good question. So creativity is kind of like the fuel for building any fire to me in terms of creating, bringing anything into the world, right? It's like when you talk about the body, you talk about athletics. And I think when you talk about the mind, you kind of talk about your creativity, right? It's like the expression of your mind as opposed to the body. And so when I was 7 years old, I was in first grade and I had an epiphany. I had to go to the bathroom really goddamn bad. And I raised my hand. The teacher wouldn't call on me. And I'm like, Oh my God, what do I do? So I took a sticky note. I wrote, I have to pee. And I slapped it on my forehead. And then I like stared at the teacher intently. And she obviously read the paper and was like, go, go, go. And I was like, okay, well, call on me next time. And that stuck in my head, though, as like I didn't get in trouble. I got the problem done. I did something I'd never seen before. And from that day forward, I was like, how often can I do this? And so when you're 7, fast forward, 2, 3 decades, right? It just built upon it and built upon it to the point in which, like, by the time I entered the professional world as a designer, I had just had years of kind of that type of thinking. And so to answer the question explicitly, how did I get to the book? I had been keeping notes for about a decade in my pocket, just things I had observed other folks doing or failing to do when creating. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, now's the time to do it. And so I wrote the book, the whole thing in 10 months because, like, what else was there to do when you're stuck inside?
Yeah.
And it felt like the culmination of everything I experienced when I was 7, just like multiplied by 100.
Awesome. That's really cool. So one of the things that I have gathered from doing a little reading and research on you is that you're a strong proponent of the idea that creativity is not a magical process. Like, it's not something that people are necessarily just born with and have some, innate talent for. But it's actually a process that you can design and be intentional about and set yourself up for. Creativity is obviously a pretty important skill for a lot of entrepreneurs. Can you talk about how the creativity process could kind of be channeled or, kickstarted from an entrepreneurial perspective?
Yeah, I think the first point to really drive home is how you started, in which that it's something that is not magic. I think a lot of creatives, quote unquote, try to, they describe their creativity as magic. Oh, it just came to me kind of shit. And I think it does a huge disservice to people who don't see themselves as creative, mainly because if you describe something as magic, then it's like, well, either you're Harry Potter or you're not, right? You're either born with it or you're not born with it. It's sort of like, I'm a muggle. Shit, that's just the way things are. And that's absolutely not true. And the couple of things I point to illustrate this are, number one is, if it were magic and it were, maybe it'll happen today, maybe it won't, how then do so many creatives show up every day and perform? Designers, writers, illustrators, right? Or they just, I hope something happens today. No, of course not. They've learned the process, right? And it is extremely reliable. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is kind of like reshaping your expectations of what it actually is, which is like, it's not the end point. It's the process, right? You're not saying like, hey, unfortunately, a lot of folks will say, I wish I was an author, which basically means I wish I had a book written by me. And the actual thing that you want to focus on is, hey, I wish I woke up every day and wrote for 45 minutes before I started work or something. Right. So it's about focusing on the reality of the case and then the process. And so for folks who are like, hey, I want to start a business, or I'm in my business and I either am just getting going, or I'm burnt out. I think as much as mundane as it sounds, the answer to that is to do anything and then assess, right? It's like if, Michael Jordan was like, I need to improve my jump shot. He doesn't sit on the couch and he's like, okay, like, how would I do that? He goes to the gym and he shoots a bunch of shitty shots and he's like, okay, what did I do wrong? And so, as again, I think we might see this comparison between the mind and the body quite a bit, because there's so much in parallel there, and a lot of it tends to be not exciting, which makes it really hard to write a book about creativity, because how do you get people excited about something that seems obvious when you say it and magic when you don't?
Okay, so a point of clarification here. I guess what I heard is that, you just need to go out and do the thing or practice the thing. I'm thinking back on, around 2017-ish when I first started my e-com business. And, when you go out and tell your family and friends that you're launching a company and there's, some mission or purpose behind it, everyone wants to help you, right? Like, it's like, hey, have you seen this Instagram ad? Hey, I should connect you with my friend who works at a digital marketing agency. And like, I was just getting so many shiny objects thrown into my lap. And, as founders and entrepreneurs, like, we love learning new things. And I eventually recognized that I was getting, I think maybe even became a little addicted to the dopamine created from all this learning. So I would argue that, I was out there I was doing the thing, I was exploring, I was turning over stones, but I realized after a while that I wasn't really being that productive, because I was just jumping around between so many different things and not sticking to them. So in a situation like that, and a paradigm like the one I described, like, what should an entrepreneur do differently to uncover, or become more creative?
Yeah. There's so many ways to bastardize a good thing. In that particular scenario, if I were sitting with you then and you were saying, hey man, I did all of these things, I learned all this stuff, I don't feel like I'm progressing, you're essentially getting high on the illusion of progress, like motion mistaken for forward motion. I would say, hey man, why don't we sit down and write down goals? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve? Again, I'm always reticent to talk about this stuff, because so often it feels so obvious. And this is another one of those cases where, like, hey dude, what are you trying to achieve? Like, when I sat down with you before this podcast and I said, what are you trying to achieve with this show? It's to understand the direction that our action should take. And you said, hey, an entrepreneurial experience with a financial bent, essentially. And so I would say to you, man, like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to earn money as a solopreneur? Do you want to start a business? What's your expertise? How can we essentially create a sort of curriculum of experiences and experiments that you can go on and do that can not necessarily give you an immediate answer, but bring you closer to an unknown, which is what creativity really is about psychologically handling the mental management of the unknown. Right.
Interesting.
And so understanding that, when I design something, for example, like if I design a new limited edition about, I don't know, nature, I know that that's my end goal. I know that I can do it, but I don't know when I'll be able to, like, I can't tell you, hey, this will take me a week or this will take me 6 weeks. It's about making sure that what I'm doing every day contributes towards either learning about something that can help me solve it or cracking a small problem that will help me solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I get it. And, looking forward, assuming we can get this ball rolling and we can build up some momentum, another problem that a lot of entrepreneurs encounter, and I personally have struggled with this in numerous different shapes and forms over the years, is perfectionism. And, making sure that it's every I is dotted and T is crossed. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're bringing into the world a product or a thing, and it's going to be very public and it's going to be out there and there's going to be people reviewing it and giving feedback on it, there's this temptation to just keep polishing it, and keep going and going and going. What's your kind of view on that, and how do you know when we've gone far enough?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts there. I should take notes here. So first of all, you have to accept that whatever you do is going to be shit in the beginning. And it might look pretty good, but no matter what, when you look back in a year, you'll be like, wow, I've come a long way. And so the better mode of thought is, hey, how do I just get anything out there and start learning and experimenting and iterating in public, which is very similar to something my professor in design used to tell me, which is, he said, you need to recognize the point at which you're not making it better, you're just making it different. If you're messing with the fonts or you're messing with your deck or your website or your pitch, and it's sort of like you come back and I have an idea today, I'll do this differently. Well, you don't really know at some point if it's better because there's diminishing returns. And I compare this to Zeno's paradox. You familiar with it?
Remind me.
Zeno's paradox is this from the philosopher Zeno, like back in the day, where he basically said, if you have a distance towards something and you cut it in half every step, you will make incredible progress but never reach it. So if you think about like if you're going from 0 being you have nothing and 100 meaning it's perfect, if anything you do to start your business, you will go from 0 all the way to 50. It's a huge leap. You've gone from nothing to something. Then you go from 50 to 75 because you're cutting it in half again. And then now I suck at math, and you go from 50 to, I don't know, whatever the fuck, half of
87.5.
87.5, right? And as you go, everything you do starts to make a smaller and smaller impact on the thing you've made until the point where you're the only one that recognizes the changes. That's the definite point. You need to stop fucking around and take what you've made and put it in public, because now you're just wasting time.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I actually faced something like that a little earlier this year when I was launching my first online course as a CFO. And I was like, okay, this is the first version of this. Like, I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to say something dumb. I want to make sure all the content's in there. And I was dragging it on for so long. And eventually, I'm part of this like accountability, mentoring group. And I had a chat with the guys about it, and eventually realized that I needed to completely change the perspective, in that the goal was not to make sure that this product was going to be awesome and it made loads of money. it was going to suck. The first iteration of it was almost definitely going to suck. But the goal was just to get feedback and learn and iterate and collect information. And when I changed that perspective, it just became so much easier to get it out there.
How did you change it? Was it just a matter of someone pointing that out to you?
Yeah, someone pointing it out to me. The other thing that honestly really helped is that this is a group of 4 or 5 people. I actually said to them at one point, you know what, this is ridiculous. I've been dragging this out so long. Since you guys are all here, I hereby commit to giving each of you $100 if I don't have this thing live by X date. And I was sitting there like a few weeks out, imagining our next, meeting, getting together, and then having to go around and ask everyone for their Venmo details. I was like, no, God, no, I don't have to do that, because then, I'm just going to feel like such an idiot. So that was actually a huge motivator for me as well. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I saved $500.
Dude, the games, the psychological games we play on ourselves sometimes can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Like you basically put yourself in a corner that you didn't have to, and it worked great.
Yeah. It did.
Well done.
Wonders.
Well done.
Anyway, in terms of progress, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Baronfig.
Okay.
Just to clarify though, which idea came first? Was it Baronfig or the book?
Oh, Baronfig. Baronfig, okay, so I launched in 2013. The book I started in like 2020.
Okay. But the ideas collection for the book was decades earlier. But
the ideas collection started in 2013, actually.
Okay.
So I started Baronfig, and I had a co-founder, Adam, and I immediately was like, hey, dude, I'd love to write this book. And so he gave me the idea, hey, just collect ideas, basically like ongoing.
Yeah.
And don't worry about when you're going to write the book. Just prepare yourself. And I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah. And so I had, I want to say like a good 100 entries into this thing of like substance, so that when I sat down in 2020 to write the book, I basically organized all those notes into the table of contents, and it built itself in a couple of days. And that table of contents became the final, pretty much. Yeah. So that method worked great.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about Baronfig then. What was the founding story behind that, and how and why did you decide that was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was in design school, and I noticed that my fellow designers were using 2 tools, a notebook and a laptop. And the laptops are all the same; they're all MacBooks, and the notebooks were all different sizes, brands, colors, paper types, everything. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Why is there ubiquity in one and not in the other? Clearly, this consumer wants to just buy the best thing for the job, but they're not doing it with the notebook. And so I was really piqued by that. And when I got the opportunity shortly after, I basically went hard on this, and I emailed over 400 what I call thinkers around the world. Basically, designer, writer, illustrator, architect, anyone who uses their brain to do their job. And I said, like, cold emails, man. And I was like, hey, I'm Joey from New York City. I'm making this thing. Just one question. What do you like in a sketchbook or notebook, right? And I sent 400, thinking I would have like a 10% response rate, right? Like 40 good emails. I had an 80% response rate. Sorry, it was 500. And I had 400 conversations with people. Wow. Outrageous, right? I mean, just like,
who would have guessed that notebooks could be such a controversial topic?
And so it turned out that at the time there was no brand that was speaking to the users in any meaningful way. And this is, what are we looking at? 12 years ago? So this is a totally different world, almost pre-influencer, pre a ton of shit, pre Shopify making e-commerce easy. I mean, there was not a lot of options back then. And so we put it on Kickstarter. I worked for 5 months. I designed everything, took the feedback, put it on Kickstarter, asking for $15,000. And we made $168,000 in 30 days. And then,
nice.
The rest is history.
Okay. So aside from so you identified a need for a a ubiquitous brand in this category.
Right.
Do you feel like you've achieved that?
Absolutely not. So it was to add color to that. It was more like there wasn't a Starbucks of notebooks where like nobody goes to Starbucks praising the coffee beans. Like nobody knows what they're drinking. It's the kind of the ritual that Starbucks said, hey, no one else is recognizing this on a big level, so we're going to, right? So that was what I recognized with notebooks. And so I did that. And I'll say that to answer your question, I think I've strayed from that over the years. We had such a powerful launch. We had such a powerful first 7 years. When the pandemic hit, it changed so much. The world changed so much. Digital tool adoption accelerated. And we tried to adjust to accommodate those changes. And I think we're actually left worse than when we started. You know, so if you talk about creativity in business, this would be a failure. This is a failure of me to iterate the business or decide if it needed to be iterated, which maybe in retrospect, it did not. But the brand kind of melted away as we focused on A/B testing, which initially was extremely fruitful because A/B tests, hey, this made us more money. Cool, let's make that change. But you add those changes up over time, and it can turn your brand into, white bread, right? Just like so plain because you've pulled out some of the personality that even though it didn't make the most money, it kept the consumer the longest. And so over time, we sort of had this increasing revenue as we A/B test. But then if you look at a long time horizon, we actually started decreasing. And after a lot of research and a lot of conversations with customers and poking around, I've realized that I made these calls to change the brand in a way in which actually lost some of the life of it. That's what we're working through now.
There's so much to unpack there. That's really, really fascinating and interesting. Firstly, the A/B test stuff, if I could just, paraphrase that to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're essentially saying that A/B testing over time kind of leads you down the path of whatever's going to appeal to the most number of people. So you're going to kind of mean revert and, the personality just gets kind of nullified. Like anything that you were originally doing to be edgy and confrontational and maybe near the fences gets brought back into the middle. Whatever appeals to the most people, it will be the A or the B that wins, right? That's a really interesting perspective on testing. But have I got that right?
Yes. And it's not like a hard and fast rule. It's a complex subject. But yes, generally you can accidentally A/B test into a type of sterility that then on a broad time horizon decreases revenue.
Okay. Interesting. And the comment you made about, I guess, losing your way somewhat, for lack of a better word, and finding that you guys had kind of drifted a bit off track. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you came to that realization. Like, what were you looking at? Was it a gradual thing? Did it slap you in the face? Were you looking at numbers? Were you listening to customer feedback? Like, how did you realize that had happened?
Yeah, a couple key indicators. Number one, and the biggest and most obvious being numbers over time, right? Revenue increasing or decreasing, and when and how much. And then number two, which is like an acute change, I noticed that a lot of our pen collectors stopped collecting. And then I found some had listed their pens for sale.
Wow. Okay.
Right. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. What, why the change when they had so avidly collected dozens of our pens? And that sent me on a journey of reflection and investigation in which I sort of came to this conclusion. It was not immediate, but I played over every big decision I made for a good 5 years. Thankfully, we have great, history of stuff like that, and really did a lot of deep thinking. And it took about 6 months for me to come out of the other side and say, wow, I think this is what we did. And also I have snapshots of the website every 12 months, and like you compare one to the other and see even inside my gut reaction to the 2019 one versus the 2020 one versus 2021. Like I was just less and less excited as I'm looking at these. And so I had to put it all together. Yeah.
Interesting.
Tough story.
So would you say that it sounds like you're at the end of that process now and you have a lot more clarity on what the future looks like? Am I hearing you correctly?
That's correct. Yeah. I'm sort of 6 months out from the 6 month process of realizing that. And I've set up a plan. We've spoken with the team. We've sort of set our milestones, and we've created, I want to say, a 12-month plan that may expand to 18 months to sort of bring the spirit back in the way that we had it. And now we're just moving. And we've seen improvements in the right ways, and we have a lot. It's sort of an accelerating attack, as in like the first 3 months we're just planning, and then the next 3 months started getting all this stuff together, and now you're just starting to see things hit the website and things change, actually starting this month.
Okay. And are you releasing all of these updates gradually, or are we likely to see them go live in, a big hit at some point soon?
They're gradual. Okay. Like we ironically still have to A/B test to make sure. We still at the end of the day need to make money. And so I do have to A/B test and make sure I don't demolish our sales, because I have done that before. Anyone who's been in e-commerce long enough has made a change on their website in which they've cut their sales in half overnight. And so you always have to A/B test and say, okay, even if this change that I really like, it decreased my revenue by 5%, is that okay? Perhaps. But something that goes down 20 or 30% is something that needs to be rethought.
Yeah, probably not okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. What would you say you're most proud of in relation to Baronfig?
I mean, I know you asked this question in a doc you shared with me beforehand. I don't even remember what I wrote, but I know what I feel right now, which is that I'm just proud the business is still alive. Business is not easy, as you know. And we are an actual independent company. We don't have funding that like allows us to not be profitable and still exist. Right? We must be profitable. We must make decisions or take risks that, may or may not wipe us off the face of the earth. And I'm just like excited that and proud that we're alive after 12 years, because I think I have seen so many companies come and go in that time, and founders come and go. So yeah, that's like my, proudest accomplishment, not dying.
And it's a huge one. What would you attribute it to?
I mean, more correct decisions than incorrect decisions would be the fundamental answer there. Enough risk tolerance to still try new things and not be scared. I'm always thinking about how I could change the brand and what it could be next. Even when we were killing it and we were, doubling revenue year over year, I was still like, how can we change it? Like, does it need to be what it is now? Never kind of accepting it. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good enough answer, to be honest. That's one I have to think about.
Yeah, it's tricky. The risk and experimentation topic I find a really interesting one. I'll share an anecdote with you about my experience with Urban Leaf, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. So Urban Leaf was also bootstrapped. We also launched via a Kickstarter and never had the luxury of, millions of dollars in the bank. I don't think we ever even had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. At best, it was like tens of thousands of dollars. And I think because of that, one of the byproducts that I didn't really appreciate going into it, but I can see now very, very acutely, is that it really, really influenced our approach to risk, in that we really couldn't afford to do experiments that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and have them fail. But had we had funding, and if there had been investors and there had been millions of dollars of cash sitting around, maybe we could have. And I think one of the byproducts of that is that we had to be a lot smaller, a lot safer, and a lot more incremental in our approach to taking risk and experimenting and iterating, which, I'll be honest, was often felt kind of tedious and frustrating and restraining. And there were a lot of times when I can remember, I just want to be able to move faster than I am, but like I have to be so damn conservative. And it's just, it really, really, grounded me at times. What was your experience with that? And do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. That was all well said. And I am 100% with you in understanding that experience. We have thankfully over time been able to transcend a little bit of that, bank account problem. But that still comes and goes, knock on wood there. I will say that I've always had the extremely clear understanding of the fleeting nature of life. Okay. I'm going to be able to work for, let's say, 40 years, or want to work for 40 years, right? 20 to 60, let's say, if I'm lucky. Which means, in my eyes, I'm either trying interesting and risky shit and succeeding, or just blowing up the business and moving on. Because I found that the worst case scenario was to be in a tedious pattern for an extended period for me. That was my personal nightmare. I would rather destroy the business. I can't tell you how many times I was in a meeting and people were like, what if it fails and we blow up? And I would say, then we fucking go do something else. I mean, obviously this economy right now is a little more challenging to just go do something else. But generally speaking, like, that is a viable approach, in general. So that was my experience with risk. Was I just need to try something. I can't do this. And as the years go on, that only becomes stronger. I'm 12 years deep in this.
That makes a lot of sense. So a lot of what I heard there was a perspective on time and the scarcity of time, and the fact that every year you're doing this, you're burning another year of time that is never going to be replaced. I want to ask about time and time management decisions. So one of the things that I understand, over the course of 12 plus years running this business, you've taught yourself web design, you've taught yourself or gotten a lot better at product, obviously. You've taught yourself about finance, you've taught yourself about 3D modeling, you've taught yourself about materials. There's like all this stuff that you've had to learn. And going back to my comment earlier about us, founders and entrepreneurs getting a bit of a rush from learning all these things. How did you, or let me start again. Talk to me about like shiny objects. How do you think about the temptation to pick up and learn and try and do all these things yourself versus just putting it down, delegating and outsourcing it to someone else who already knows how to do it?
Great question. My co-founder, Adam Cornfield, said early on, after a particularly poor experience with an agency, he said, man, I think until we do something ourselves and learn it, it'll never really go well for us because someone could easily take advantage or do a shit job and we wouldn't know. So we didn't have any like experience. And so we kind of built a foundation of learning. Now, of course, that's time consuming and distracting. But oftentimes it was just out of necessity. It's like we've both said that we don't have bank accounts that are, flush in a way in which we can hire someone who is the best at what they do. And so you end up being able to hire, an agency that is okay at this thing. And then you're putting your money at risk and the business at risk. And ironically, we just talked about that being exciting or a viable option. But sometimes the best choice, like I don't take stupid risks. And if I think there's someone who can't perform, then I'd rather just learn it myself, because then I can always do it. And so over time, when you look at, hey, I could pay $50,000 for this person to come in and maybe or maybe not succeed, or I could take, 6 weeks and bust my ass on overtime to learn it and be able to maybe make half the progress I need and then speak intelligently to someone who can do the rest. It's a pretty viable approach if you've got the energy, the time, and the interest for the thing, but that's not always the case. Have you ever had to learn something you didn't want to learn?
I have. I would put a lot of tax stuff in that category, a lot of legal stuff, incorporation, like where do we need to be filing, this and that. Might sound a little bit strange, but even as a finance guy, there's a lot of parts of bookkeeping and accounting that I don't particularly enjoy.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think I've ever really had too much of a problem with wasting time on stuff that I didn't want to do. The thing that I was guilty of on numerous occasions is just like avoiding stuff for too long, right? There's a problem there. I know it needed a solution. I didn't want to be that solution. I didn't have anyone on the team who could be that solution. And I just, drew stuff out like a lot longer than it probably should have on a lot of occasions because I just didn't want to deal with it. I made that mistake on, more than one occasion for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I think I have as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, prioritizing becomes such a key ability, if you're the leader and you're kind of dictating. That's something that I learned through, a lot of pain, I'm sure.
A lot of the best lessons are learned through pain, I found.
Definitely.
Tend to be particularly memorable lessons that way. Yeah.
Well,
speaking of teams and roles, one really interesting thing about you is that you're both the entrepreneur founder, but also the creator. And they're often, two very different hats. Commonly, even different, seats or people within an organization. How do you balance the two, the time that you spend in each of them? And can you talk to me about the process of how you kind of switch between them? I mean, I'm imagining that like you can't do all of one or all of the other, like probably on a given week or even a given day, like you need to be switching back and forth. Is there a process you go through, a ritual, or, like how do you switch back and forth like that?
Yeah, I think it's not as hard as it sounds, or it may seem. Once you're good at something, you're just doing one thing versus the other. But I will say I was not good at being, what's the right word? I was good at being a leader, as in people will listen to me when I talk. Maybe just being a tall person probably contributes. Tall, confident dude. But I was a creative person first and had to learn to use the other half of the brain, let's say. And I specifically learned that. I got lucky in that when I started the company, I had my co-founder, and then our two first hires were friends that I had known for years. who are not afraid to tell me, yo, dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about or what you want us to do, but I'm willing to do it. But you need to be really goddamn clear. And they forced me to communicate my vision, organize it better, distribute responsibilities the right way. And through that first experience with them for about 3 or 4 years, I had the beautiful benefit of unfiltered feedback on my ability to be the CEO or the leader. And so nowadays, it's been so long. It's like designing or decision making, right? It's just two tasks to me at this point. And I think it's like if you play basketball and then you play, football, you just whatever field you're on, you just sort of pick up the ball and you start playing, and you don't really need to switch. It's just kind of like context is the switch, So if I open InDesign and I start designing, I'm designing. And if I open a video call and there's a problem and someone prepares a presentation and tells me what's going on, then I think about it and make a call. And they are both natural now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it does. It seems like it is very context driven, I guess, and you've had a lot of practice at it now and you can flow back and forth. Do you think it comes natural to everyone, or do you think it took practice?
Oh, it definitely takes practice. I think you're one or the other. I think you're either kind of like left brain, right brain, leader, follower, that sort of thing, and not so used to switching. Like I love to be the follower. I love when a team member is like, I know what to do and I need your help to do this like piece of it. And I'm like, cool, just tell me what you need. Great. I love that you made a decision. I'm happy to be your tool to execution. No problem. And then other times, it's reverse where I'm like, hey, everybody, I need you to do this, X, Y, and Z. It needs to be done by this date. And that is the call.
Yeah.
And it is just practice. Which do you feel more comfortable with?
It's an interesting question. I think I am more comfortable being creative than I am being the leader of a team. I think I was an okay founder / CEO, but I certainly wouldn't give myself a 10 out of 10 rating. I was good at the vision and the ideas and the big picture, dreamy sort of stuff. But when it came to kind of managing the day to day and the people and the check-ins and so forth, I just didn't really feel like it was an environment in which I was excelling. And, upon reflection, having been in that seat for 6 or 7 years and now moved into a fractional CFO sort of role, I think I'm much, much better suited to what I'm doing now. I like being the, wingman to the founder. I like being their sounding board. I like being the guy that they can talk to about, their numbers and data. And I'm much, much more in my element here than I think I was in the founder seat. But having been in the founder seat, I think it was really helpful because I can, I understand the sort of decisions they make and, the challenges and problems they run into. So it certainly helps from, an empathy perspective, I think.
I got you.
Yeah. Well, something else that I think is really notable about your business is that you have brokered some really interesting partnerships and collaborations. I'm not sure how much detail you're able or willing to share on some of these things. I do recall you and I have talked about some of this stuff in other contexts, but one of them is obviously, James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits, and you have some Atomic Habits branded products, and including a journal. How have these, partnerships come about, and what's your kind of honest review on them for other founders who might be looking to do or scale their businesses through similar strategies?
Yeah, they're challenging. I came up with this idea like pre-influencer, really, right? started this concept pretty early. And I based it around the idea that Nike, especially back in the day, had Nike athletes, right? Michael Jordan's Nike athlete, I don't know. I don't know sports that well enough to name a bunch of them, but you get the drift. And so I thought, cool, well, I'll do for the mind what they do for the body, and I'll create Baronfig thinkers. And so James Clear's a Baronfig thinker, and I had a couple of others, Lauren Hom, Jeff Govea. And then I had an NFL player, Roxanne Gay, which is a New York Times #1 best-selling author. All sorts of cool stuff. And I think there's so much to this, man, because they add a lot of credibility. They're really fun. You're working with other high achievers, which is just the best. Like I like to be the best, and I like to work with the best, and that's a great opportunity to do so. When you're selling a physical product and you are small business like mine, there is a danger of putting too much capital towards something that you don't have a lot of control over. So what do I mean by that? I spend, let's say, $30,000 on a collaboration with someone, and then they don't promote it in the way that we agreed upon. There's not really much you can do at that point. Because you sort of bring to at least in our instance, we bring the expertise of product design and production. They bring the audience. If they stop bringing the audience, the sales go down. We're sort of left with, left holding the bag. And so that's been a challenge that I've seen over the years that has made me institute a bit more strict policy around these agreements with these folks that when I first started felt like some of the things felt obvious and some of them felt like a betrayal of trust. And I've since thrown all that out the window and I've said, fuck it. We're putting all this down, everything down, even the obvious shit and the minutia. And you need to put your name on it because otherwise you're left with shit on the shelf that you can't sell. So it's really cool, fun, challenging to land a big fish, but also there's high risk, high reward in the revenue department.
How would you say it stacks up compared to other marketing / growth initiatives on a ROI basis when you look at the time and cost involved to broker something like this?
I mean, it's so wildly case by case basis because we've had some where I spent 3 to 6 months making a product for the moderate amount of my time, 20% amount of my time during that time, and I don't know, 30 grand in development costs, and now we're still selling it years later, and we don't have to do anything, right? The person moves it, and then I've done the same, and the product hasn't moved. And there was a lot of internal chatter here around, hey, how do we get the right person? And so we kind of tried to quantify what that meant. We've learned what would sell a product. And I'll tell you what that is, with the caveat being this is for our business, our products, in our particular approach being e-com. So we've learned that you could have 20 million social media followers. You won't sell as much stuff as someone who has 100,000 email followers. So we put together a formula, which I don't have in front of me, but I remember the gist being to partner with us in this way, you need at least 200,000 email followers. You need an open rate of at least 30%. If you do have social media followers, I think the numbers like we need you to have like 20 million, which nobody has in our, the people we're interested in don't. So that's kind of irrelevant to us. And we've sort of moved on those. And then we've set requirements for what you do with email, basically. And we've made some exceptions. I won't name products, but like there was a product that I just wanted to make and this person didn't have that kind of thing. And I was like, like we're going to skip that. And that's sort of a passion project. But if you
Mhm.
want to make reliable returns, that's what we have found currently is needed.
Got it. Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
And talk to me about how the role of financials and numbers in your business and your relationship with financials as a non-finance guy coming into the world of business and finance. I'd love to hear about like the evolution of that relationship and how it's kind of changed over time, and
Yeah.
anything that you perhaps appreciate about that world that maybe you didn't 12 years ago.
Yeah, I will say I'm a reluctant finance non-enthusiast. So um, I had the great benefit of starting the company with a finance guy who did
Okay.
all the finances.
Yep.
I was the creative marketing leadership dude. He was the finance and operations dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to learn it. I mean, I didn't have the desire, number one. I didn't have the time. We were two guys doing everything for a year. Like there was no, hey man, you want to learn this shit? It was like every day was packed. 7 days a week of working back then when I was 26. Over time, as he moved on in like, this was really my project and he kind of was just helping and he moved on. And then I got someone else who wasn't a founder, but was interested in finance. And so I would start to ask questions, but I never really took the time and this is, if I were the type to get embarrassed, I would say this is embarrassing, but I'm not. I never really took the time to say, what is a P&L? What is a balance sheet? Like, what is cash flow? Right? Because I had the luxury of not needing to between this guy doing it and so much sales coming in at the time. We were growing. Selling out constantly. I enjoyed the naivety. But eventually the pandemic hit, things changed. Like I said, our branding suffered at my hands. That guy is no longer here. I then took that over and kind of had to do a crash course on what the heck does this all mean and what am I looking for? What are the signs? When you and I first met, I was probably just really getting my hands dirty with finances and understanding it like at the beginning. And I learned so much, and I do wish that I had done it much earlier, combined with having someone who was truly very good at it to augment my understanding. So a CFO I did not have until 2024, maybe 2023, maybe. And it helped so much, tremendously. And so now today I have a strong understanding of what the numbers look. I start pointing things out and I'm like, hey, we should think about this, or this looks like something dangerous. And things are in a much better place because of it.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
But I'm still no pro. I mean, CFO is like irreplaceable.
Always be learning.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been really interesting, Joey. I appreciate all the stories you've shared. Is there any final words that you'd like to share with folks? Any advice or recommendations for other entrepreneurs who are maybe looking to follow in your path?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we mentioned in our notes that I don't think we may have explicitly discussed is the importance of a spreadsheet to test your hypothesis for your business. So anyone who's listening out there who wants to start a business or is in the early stages and still trying to kind of understand, what their business could look like or how it could improve, I always force folks to create a scenario in a spreadsheet of what the business key items operate like. I don't even know the lingo to say this, but if you've ever played lemonade stand when you were a kid, it's sort of like, hey man, do the lemonade stand thing in a spreadsheet with your business. How many sales are you going to get? What is the average order value? What does that cost? What do how much to expenses? How much to income? What are you left with? multiply that by 1,000, 10,000. What does it look like? Is that a business you want to run or not? Would you be happy with those numbers? A lot of the times, people who I've run this exercise through with will enter the existing data from their business and look at that and go, holy crap, I had no idea. Like, this sucks. Or like, this is so weak. And then we've been able to sit there and talk about it. I basically do business therapy for people where it's not really finance, but that one element is how I always start it. And it's fascinating to see how many folks don't do that. So yeah, my final thought for folks on a finance front, especially, is to run a scenario in a spreadsheet of your business and make sure you know where it can end up before you even really try.
I imagine it's a whole lot easier to build a business in a spreadsheet compared to real life too, right?
Hell yeah, man. But if it doesn't work in the spreadsheet, it is not going to work in real life.
Yeah, definitely. Especially once I think back to the hundreds, if not thousands of spreadsheets I built for my own business. And, the difference between the scenario that you put in a spreadsheet and the version of reality that ultimately transpires is usually a small fraction of that. Founders are notoriously optimistic, and something I've battled with a lot over the years.
Yeah.
There's actually a thing I do now with my retainer clients where I actually, every time we do an update of the models, I'll essentially copy the entire P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow statement into a separate sheet and date it, which means that like every month we have like an archived forecast for inventory, an archived forecast for EBITDA, an archived forecast for, cash flow and everything. And then I can kind of put together these charts that kind of show the evolution of our forecasts over time. So we can rewind and say, okay, this was our revenue forecast back then, and then this is how it went, a month later.
That's
and
cool.
A month later. And so you can kind of see, almost like a forward curve, if you're familiar with that concept, that kind of shows how your forecasts have evolved over time. And I actually first came up with that for my own business because I recognized that I was just chronically over optimistic, and I was always, way too bullish. And I thought, this is really going to get me into trouble, because when you forecast that too high, you forecast inventory too high, you've got too many people, too much overhead, blah, blah, blah. Like everything else is bloated. And I thought, I'm going to blow myself up if I don't fix this. And so I basically started using this method as like a self-correction tool to, try to normalize my own forecasts.
That's cool. Helpful. You did that with us briefly, where you made a forecast and then later on you came back and you're like, hey, here's the actual compared to the forecast. And it was very, very accurate and well done.
Yeah.
Even you were like, man, don't expect me to do this every time, but it was within like 1%. And I was like,
that was honestly a bit of a fluke, Joey.
I was like, that was amazing.
I don't want you to think I actually do that regularly.
That was powerful. That was powerful. Yeah. Anyway, yes. All right. Finance is clutch.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, where can people find you online? I'm going to include a few show notes below if you want me to include some specific links in there, social stuff, ordering pages, anything else you'd like people to know about, I can include below. Yeah,
if you want to check out Baronfig, we've been talking about that quite a bit. Just go to baronfig.com. And if you want to learn more about the things I do, go to joeycofone.com. Check out the show notes for the correct spelling.
Okay. With an E at the end, I understand.
Correct.
Cool, man. Okay. Well, I appreciate the time again, Joey. Thank you so much for joining us. And I guess we'll see you around. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for the chat, man. That was good.